The Connected Consumer. My name is Chris White.
And I am Rosie Alpino, and we are the hosts for Parks Associates' new podcast, The Connected Consumer.
This podcast is all about Parks Associates' data-driven market insights on emerging consumer technology products and services, and it features our talented analyst team and industry leaders who bring new and innovative products to market.
Throughout this podcast, you'll get an inside look at the latest industry trends focused on the connected consumer, home automation and security, energy management, connected health and independent living, and digital content and video services.
In this episode, we'll listen in on an interactive panel session from our latest Connected Health Summit virtual series. This executive conference is focused on the impact of connected devices and IoT healthcare solutions on consumers at home.
This interactive panel is moderated by our Senior Analyst Kristen Hanich and focuses on artificial intelligence and personalization in medicine, featuring executives from Ada Health, Optum, Nuance Communications, Valencell, JVION, and Biofourmis.
I'm Kristen Hanich, a Senior Analyst here at Parks Associates. I lead our connected health research, designing and authoring our research reports, moderating and presenting at our events, and regularly speaking with industry executives to help answer some of the biggest business questions impacting the connected health market today. So I'm going to be going through and briefly introducing everyone, and everyone is also going to give a few minutes to talk about themselves and what they do at their companies. So kicking things off is Jeff Cutler, Chief Commercial Officer at Ada Health.
Thank you, Kristen. For those of you that are unfamiliar with us, Ada is a global health company that was founded to improve human health by transforming knowledge into better outcomes. Our vision, quite simply, is to democratize access to healthcare across the globe and to improve the health of 1 billion people with the trusted medical guidance that we can offer that becomes relevant, actionable, and effective.
Next, we have Carrie Hawley, who is the Senior Vice President and Technology Fellow at Optum. Carrie, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, thanks for the introduction there. Carrie Hawley, I have a unique role at United Health Group, Optum, which is that of a technology fellow. And a lot of my focus is on helping the organization advance our capabilities in AI. And so that covers the range from what we do in the cloud, what we do on-prem, and of course, the various healthcare use cases.
So next up, we have Karen Holzberger, who is SVP and GM of Diagnostics at Nuance.
Thanks for having us. Really excited to be a part of this panel. I, again, with Nuance Healthcare, we are a company that uses AI technologies to help the doctors make better intelligent decisions through speech, natural language processing, and other AI tools and technologies to really help them with their day to better do what they do best, is serve their patients.
So next we have Dr. Stephen Labouf, who is president and co-founder of Valencell. Stephen, or do you prefer Dr. Labouf?
I just go by my last name, Labouf. Just think I've had enough of Labouf. My name is Dr. Stephen Labouf, and I'm the president and also one of the founders of Valencell. And Valencell is an interesting company in this space because, we don't make our own medical devices directly ourselves. At least today we don't. We provide core technology that goes into wearable devices, both on the consumer side for sports and fitness, performance and wellness, but also now increasingly more on the medical side. And we provide core technology that allows you to accurately measure heart rate, respiration rate, a variety of biometrics. And now another innovation of ours more recently is blood pressure. And so we provide that to the marketplace and make sure those technologies work so that their use cases can be implemented the right way.
So next, Dr. Stephen Schultz, who is the Chief Product Officer at JVION.
Hi, Kristen. Thank you for the introduction. I'm an internal medicine physician by background. I joined JVION about 4.5 years ago. The company has been around for about 10 years working on clinical artificial intelligence, really taking the journey from predictive intelligence to prescriptive intelligence, giving insight onto, who really needs an intervention, what that best intervention is, and then how to engage an individual in actually achieving that intervention.
Thank you so much, John. Definitely looking forward to hearing more. And then next and last, we have Jaden Tucker, who is COO of Biofourmis.
Thank you, Kristen. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaden Tucker, Chief Operating Officer of Biofourmis. Let me start with a quick note of thank you to Kristen and Park Associates for hosting this very timely and relevant discussion and inviting me to join this panel with thought leaders that I see really shaping the future of healthcare. A little bit about Biofourmis. It was founded in 2015 with a focus on developing predictive analytics for improving health outcome. We provide an end-to-end platform for managing patients at home across the continuum of care. So this includes managing an acute condition to a transitive care, post-acute, post-discharge, and ultimately helping support patient in a chronic condition management.
Yes, so let's actually just dive right into it and get started. So my question posed to you all today is really, what is AI and personalized medicine, and how is it really being applied today? And then Labouf, maybe you can start us off.
Well, at Valencell, we see AI every which way from Sunday because of our unique position in the marketplace. We see it all the way from the bottom going up. For example, many of our biometrics, maybe even all of them today, employ AI to generate the biometrics. This is because you don't know for certain maybe what a heart rate is or breathing rate is when there's so much noise that's around. And so AI is used to kind of fill in those gaps. But also our technology that generates blood pressure from these wearable devices, that technology is AI based. It's a machine learning algorithm that converts the optical information from the body into an accurate assessment of blood pressure. So AI is right there from the start, but then our customers who put our technology into their products, they have their own AI. For example, one of our customers, they use our technology, our metrics, which are powered by various different machine learning algorithms to guess and estimate whether or not you might be about to wet the bed, for example. Another one of our customers is using our blood pressure technology, or at least evaluating it for the purpose of better understanding sleep health. So they make their own assessments using AI based off the metrics that we provide them that have some AI base around them. And then more broadly, those platforms are going into systems that may make even more sweeping conclusions or estimations based off AI. For example, is this person have a high risk of high mortality? Or is this person maybe at a high risk of where they maybe should have an intervention early on based off of all these assessments that our partners provide? So we see it all across the board.
Certainly many different types of use cases and applications there. And then does anyone else want to share, maybe Jim?
I think Labouf covered some of the key use cases that are certainly there. In other ways, I'll extend upon that is where we work with health systems in a variety of the acute to post-acute condition. So finding out which patient is ready for the discharge, which patient can be managed at their home, and very frequently that data collected through sensors and wearable need to be converted into that insight that guides the right selection of the patient, the time when they can be discharged, and when they need to be brought back through those AI alerts. So being able to make those decisions with the AI tool is really empowering clinicians to make some of this decision. On our pharma side, I'll give just an entirely different lens. They are really applying AI tools to look at how they can advance therapy development at a faster rate. Could you pick up a signal on safety and efficacy through the use of AI tool and high volume data that tells something unique about that particular drug? So the overall use cases are quite wide in personalizing treatment through timing the intervention, timing the dose, or even selecting the right dose.
Kristen, if I could just jump in, from our perspective, artificial intelligence, or AI, is quite simply the use of very powerful technology, computing power, against massive amounts of data in order to solve problems. So in our case, there's three components to it, the AI platform. There's the medical knowledge base, which contains all of the world's credible information as it relates to symptoms and the conditions that can be causing them with other findings. And then the AI component is a probabilistic reasoning engine that continually goes against the knowledge base based on every piece of information. So just like a human being, it's reprocessing the entire case with every single piece of data it gets. And that's important because many of the platforms that are out today kind of purport to be AI, but they're really static decision trees, where once you're out on, for instance, the headache or nausea branch of a tree, the questions are all predetermined. And that's just not the way a clinician operates. They draw on the full collective of their wisdom in order to continually decide what might be at play. So that's what AI means to us.
Yeah, I mean, definitely as a physician, the signal is what matters, right? The actual insight is what truly matters. What is AI is a little smudgy, but I don't think what the signal is so smudgy. And the personalization really is about getting a signal strong enough to know what that individual needs, and understand what's going on with that individual's biometrics, getting those correct, adjusting to, even, can you measure a cachectic, overly malnourished patient's blood pressure just as well as you can measure an obese patient's, blood pressure or heart rate with the same biometric tool. So getting that signal by using the right technology, the right math, and getting that to the clinicians in a way that they can act, that's really how we view the personalization side of things.
I agree with every thing that's been said. I guess I'd add a couple of things. The quest to understand and define AI is an interesting one because its utility, of course, is more important. But I would offer that there's a lot of conversation that equates AI and machine learning, which are not the same. But AI is clearly is aspirational. It clearly is a field of computer science. It clearly involves computing power. And I apologize for my background noise, but hopefully you can still hear me okay. But I guess a couple of things. One is I think that when we talk about personalized medicine, another name for that is precision medicine. And of course, that involves data, massive amounts of data. Of course, it involves a strong signal. But we have to find a way to make sense of those signals. What makes it strong is, of course, its accuracy for that individual, because each individual is different. And this is where artificial intelligence, clearly when we get to more causation, we get to more probabilistic AI, these are all good advances. But I just wanted to emphasize that we're on a journey here. We've been looking at things like a digital twin to do more focus on precision medicine, more personalized medicine, so people can have maybe something in their pocketbook or their purse or whatever that gives them a reflection of their health state at any point in time, not just predictions, but actually probabilities of where they will potentially get a certain disease state, or whether their diet and exercise and movement, et cetera, is having an effect on X, Y, or Z. So just wanted to offer that perspective.
Hey, Carrie, when you talk about making a digital twin, I've always wanted to have a digital twin. Could you make mine evil?
Oh, no.
What if I'm the evil twin?
I think that's probably the more realistic scenario, that the human who has autonomy is going to make that twin evil.
To kind of bring it back, I think there's a couple of key aspects that haven't been touched upon as we talk about precision medicine, personalized medicine, the use of AI, machine learning tools. Is for the doctors, it needs to be within their workflow seamlessly. They're already reaching levels of burnout pre-COVID to now levels that are just almost unsustainable, and they're not doing what they went to school for, is the practice of medicine to improve a patient's outcome. And so as we think about these machine learning tools, the low-hanging fruit, about how do you insert real-time intelligence through did you remember to talk about this in the note? Did you remember to, in the case of a radiologist, put in breast density? These smaller things to actually improve the quality of the documentation so you can improve the patient's care pathway, ultimately improving the patient's outcome. And secondarily, that's important, and to your point, Jeff, very much so, is the doctor is thinking continuously about how to care for that patient. How do you insert feedback loops back to AI on that test set and those continuing training sets so that AI starts to improve and it isn't as, I'll say, what's the right word? It improves over its time on its accuracy, its consistency. Those are also important things to get AI into action, because we've been talking about AI and how it can help us. But what we haven't continued to prove is the positive proof points of today for the doctor to actually improve that patient's life, patient's expectancy, reducing costs of what that is, because you're treating earlier, because AI helps with that. And I think those are important aspects as we start thinking about
I just wanted to
medicine.
echo what you just said, Karen. I think those were some powerful messages, because one of the things we're also focused on is making technology invisible, so that clinicians actually, we've been for decades making technology irresistible, but if we can actually make it invisible, we actually have an opportunity to do what you just said, which is to minimize physician burnout, make the technology seamless, contextual, and impactful to the clinician, so they spend less time with the technology and more time with the patients. So I just wanted to double down on what you said. I think that was outstanding.
Thank you.
But absolutely, the feedback loop is critical. What we're doing is three things. One, just to alert everyone, we have been appointed by the World Health Organization as the topic driver for their AI work group. And we work with folks on a global basis and competitors and others to establish benchmarks and standards and guidance. The World Health Organization just published their kind of first standards around that in the last couple of days. So that's one thing we do. Secondly, we've started a whole research division, and we're trying to work with the industry to produce research to validate the outcomes, the efficacy, the safety, and even the ultimate recommendations. And then in the product itself, right to Karen's point, we've had to build a feedback loop so that the clinicians themselves can tell us afterwards, was the information helpful, correct? Did it help them determine the right diagnosis? And most importantly, was the triage advice safe? So we try to build that all in, and then the algorithms can improve themselves over time based on that.
And then, so speaking about the importance of feedback and the importance of maybe new forms of guidance and best practices, can we maybe talk to some of the challenges that companies face in getting these types of solutions, AI and machine learning, approved and actually implemented? So what is the regulatory path to market for some of these AI solutions that may be classified as software as medical devices?
With AI, when they're identifying the pixels, doing quantification or diagnostics, those are regulated medical devices, which we're really grappling with about when it becomes aided diagnosis versus triaging or prioritizing, and the doctor's making the diagnostic decision, is part of the regulatory hurdles that we're facing today. I do think we've been a bit short-sighted in the industry where there is other AI for the doctor using natural language processing to do clinical recommendations, standardizing recommendations after what the radiologist calls as an impression. They're describing what they see in the patient's images and what that follow-up care is for the doctor. I think there are these two places that we can put real emphasis on about this real-time intelligence through clinical recommendations and follow-up versus spending all our time on diagnosing the pixels or the DICOM images or the CT images, if you're not so familiar with radiology or enterprise imaging, to be able to do that. But there is this interest criteria with our federal government through the FDA to have these tools, certified for their safety and efficacy. And it's something, if you're an AI vendor who's out there with a lot of X-ray data or CT data, lung data, and are trying to build these algorithms, because there's certainly millions and millions and millions of images out there to build algorithms, machine learning algorithms off of, understanding what it takes to do that. And then secondarily, what does it take to put it into workflow for the radiologist so it doesn't slow them down? I think those are the two key areas to really be thinking about as you're taking an algorithm to market.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden, do you have something also to add? Because I know you're talking from another side of medical device.
Oh, yes, thank you. My apologies for that internet connection. So yes, what we end up doing is take an algorithm that starts with how would you take a typical medical device, collect the data. You have to train the algorithm on significant amount of data, take it to the next stage, and then generate the validation in the clinical trial phase. We've been very fortunate to work very closely with regulators like FDA. And I can tell you that over the few years, FDA has been very, very receptive. What was seen as a regulatory barrier, they're quite welcoming, working with leading companies and in shaping both the guidance as well as how we can get these pathways through. So we've been fortunate to leverage that partnership and get a couple of algorithms that have gone through that entire clearance process through FDA.
Another interesting perspective, I'm sorry, Carrie, is around clinical trials for either medical devices to actually bring drugs and different pharmaceuticals or medical devices earlier to market by using AI in the research, in the clinical trials, to actually build those packages together for the FDA. And that's another, I think, JD, that you were talking about, and maybe Carrie, you're going to touch on too.
Actually, I wasn't going to touch on that, but I just wanted to comment on I sort of saw the question as two-part, and all of you guys have a lot more knowledge than I on medical devices and regulatory, but you also asked the question about adoption. and how do we get the enterprise more effective, efficient in terms of AI. And I just wanted to make a brief comment that that's a big challenge. That these large organizations, I work at one, of course, right now with UHG and Optum, and we rely heavily on the tech companies and the cloud services, the democratization that's occurring around AI, the work that folks like that you guys are doing at Nuance and Microsoft and Ada, all the work that startups and non-startups are doing. We rely heavily on those on your organizations to advance the work we do in AI. I just wanted to emphasize that.
And Kristen, just wanted to quickly add on the medical device regulation side. We are subject to MDR in Europe. As a quick update, it was supposed to be enacted about a year ago. I think it was last end of May or June, but it was postponed for a year in COVID. It is now out there. We've structured the company around it. And what we're going to find is the FDA, as previously mentioned, is not currently enforcing at least software platforms like ours, but they've indicated that they will do so at their own discretion. But they've also indicated that they're going to follow Europe's lead when they do ultimately regulate platforms like ours. And what we've learned is, to Karen and others' points, you've really got to focus on the clinical research, the data, and then very importantly, the post-market surveillance. And one of the things that a lot of our partners in the industry are going to learn is once something's declared a medical device, it can't be white labeled. And we deal with that a lot because a lot of health systems are white labeling platforms like ours right now. But they're going to find once the FDA enforces medical device regulation that it's quite possible that if they don't adopt the approved device's brand, that they may be subject to the burden of the regulation themselves. So it's going to be a lot of fun times and changes in the next year, I think. It
certainly sounds like a very big learning curve for many companies. And were there, I guess, any other thoughts on this, or we could jump ahead?
Well, one thing I would say is from Valencell's perspective in this case, we are pursuing FDA approval for our blood pressure technology, which gives an accurate assessment of blood pressure with these wearable devices, with the optical sensor data that comes out of these devices. And it's based around this layer of machine learning. And the thing about that should be concerning, people should consider anytime something like this is proposed is if I'm going to directly measure pressure, I have a sensor, it's very linear. I apply a force to it. I see what the pressure result is. In Valencell's case, we've got this model that connects the dots between this blood flow information we collect from light to blood pressure. It's very nonlinear. And so from the FDA's perspective, you got this black box that's doing all these brain-like calculations that you can't peer into, and you shouldn't be able to peer into because of the proprietary technology, but you want to make sure it's thinking correctly. So one of the things we've had to do is explain at least enough how it fundamentally works so that people can understand where and better appreciate where the risk might be when it generates a value. So you can't just have a black box. You do have to do enough explanation for people to understand what could go wrong with those assessments.
Certainly, it's a big change for maybe some of the earlier models of data science where you had algorithms that were applied that may have been complicated, but they were also understandable by humans.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, I don't think we're ever going to, well, not ever, but, in the near term, not going to be, comfortable with purely black box. Software as a medical device is going to have to be, explainable beyond, there's some hidden layers and we got some accuracy in order for it to move forward as a medical device. The same is true on the clinical decision support software. At that side, you really have to be able to explain it. You have to be able to make it clear to the clinicians, how those decisions were made. And if you're using advanced, artificial intelligence techniques, you're going to have to figure out how you unravel those techniques to explain it to the clinicians. The clinical decision support as a software level is continuing to rise. And probably will slowly fade away as the FDA gets into regulating it. But it's definitely the black box era is probably over, and the technologies that are able to successfully identify that signal and explain how they define that signal are going to have a distinctive edge.
I like living on the edge, so that works well for me.
I think it is worth noting that this is where starting early, if you can start in the clinical trial phase you've got so much opportunity there. You're doing it under an IRB reviewed protocol. There is an additional oversight. Getting your algorithm through that research phase, work with the pharma company, just offer them as an additional tool. While you do have an additional mitigation, you're not just relying upon an algorithm. Your rest of the standard procedures are still there, but you are able to collect the data and generate that evidence that not only regulators, but also makes clinicians comfortable when you get there. I would say there are some algorithms that the power of the machine is you can't comprehend it. It's not going to be white box. So black box algorithm do have a significant value. Collecting the proper research data and evidence is how we might be able to get them through and get everyone to feel comfortable about them.
Yeah, just very quickly, John, I think it was, made a wonderful point on that, and that is something that everyone needs to consider. I mean, this whole world of software as a medical device for patients is one thing, but as John said, once you get into that clinical decision support stuff, it takes on a whole other level. And what we're finding, to his point, is as long as you let them know, what went into the algorithm, the decision, and you're not making the decision for them, it won't be subject to the clinical support regulation. So as an example, we'll provide the full patient dialogue, we'll provide the differential diagnoses and the associated probabilities, but then kind of hand that to the clinician and say, now you use this data and your collective wisdom to make the decision. We're not going to make it for you. And that's a big difference.
And that's very important about inserting the real-time intelligence, the decision support tools at that point to let them ultimately the decision, like, no, I've got enough other information that I'm going to disregard this, or this is a great reminder for me. We all use Grammarly, and I think Grammarly works so well because of the way they've done the workflow for us as we think about how we write. And this is how decision support tools have to work in the electronic health record, in the creation of the documents, in the creation of the ordering process, whatever it is, to get to, patients are becoming more and more informed consumers. And so whether it's about where am I going to go to the highest quality, most cost-effective provider, whether it's, for imaging, whether it's for my PCP, how is AI going to be able to help the doctor say, like, look, I've got a more informed care pathway. So all those pieces that they can still be doctors is really, I think, at the end game for all of us as being part of the industry.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I think Jeff and Karen, you make some outstanding points. I think, Jeff, the point you made about autonomy, I think is really key because, giving systems software autonomy is a different issue than explainability and black box. And then Karen, you brought up the Grammarly because I think clinicians, and John, you keep me honest here, but I think clinicians use black boxes all the time. The stethoscope is a black box and you trust it. And the duality of software and the state of software and AI today arguably doesn't give you that same level of trust, but we'll get there as we do more with explainability and so forth. So I just wanted to put sort of a futuristic view out there in terms of where we're going.
No, that was really well said. Trust is so important for software, tools, technology, and for sure AI. That was, yeah.
I'll give you another example in blood pressure. And this is, really apropos for what I do in the field is, when oscillometric blood pressure monitors were first developed a few decades ago, it was a long time before physicians ever trusted those. And it wasn't because oscillometric blood pressure monitors didn't work. They worked beautifully. It took a while to trust. What am I going to trust? My ears more or this oscillometric cuff? And I'm taking a measurement and maybe this measurement I took with my traditional sculptatory methodology got a certain blood pressure in the oscillometric cuff, and that a few minutes later measured 10 millimeters of mercury different. And now I have this distrust, and it took a long amount of time for people to really feel like, yeah, this really is getting me what I need in a more effective way. And for Valencell's technology and wearable devices, there'll be something similar to that, and it should be. There should be this appreciation of trust that you have to earn to get to that point.
Yeah, no, we like to convince ourselves that, as physicians, that we actually completely understand the stethoscope, but we don't really, right? Go ahead and explain the physics of the sound waves and how the heart pumping moves the skin, moves the diaphragm, and then but we convince ourselves that we understand enough of acoustics that we understand the stethoscope, right? But we really don't. We trust it, and I do think we're going to get there with software, and we've got example after example, and in healthcare around our adoption of innovation, that it's just it's until we trust it, and then once it's trusted, it's rapidly adopted. But that until they trust it phase can vary a lot.
So one of the big challenges in terms of getting health tech adopted is really building up sufficient clinical evidence of effectiveness and tying that back to a strong business case. 2020 took remote patient monitoring and virtual care from pilot projects to major rollouts in many cases. But as of right now, it seems like a lot of that effort was focused on the low-hanging fruit. Really, what would you say is next from here?
Well, this question really resonates with me because I have the saying that goes, chemistry can be instantaneous, but biology takes time. And this is broadly across the case of just developing new biometrics with wearable devices, which we do, but then also in proving out the validation that these will improve outcomes and then also reduce costs, because everything that comes across my desk on any medical device, any medical solution we get involved in, one common theme is you've got to improve outcomes at reduced cost. Those two are tied together because everything costs too much and everyone wants a better outcome. And so taking the technology to cross all those levels is what we deal with all the time at Valencell.
Dr. Labouf, you just defined value-based care. Perfect. I mean, increasing quality, reducing costs. Absolutely, that's what AI has to start proving. And that goes to Carrie's point about trust and adoption and getting this to scale. I mean, just well said.
Actually building on what Jaden said before, I mean, we need to plan early to prove our evidence. We just today found out, that one of our peer-reviewed journal articles went live online today, around our ability to predict mortality oncology patients. That's been a 3-year journey. I mean, from designing the study to running the study to collecting all of the outcomes data, for a year follow-up on mortality to then going through all the hoops to get it published. If you decide to start thinking about the research, the publication, the proof points at the end, you're really far behind the 8 ball. So if you're out there working on, AI, then you should be designing these studies up on the front end, working through the IRB determinations and knowing what you're going after from the get-go. And you should be looking at that from your partners. Are you actually doing those processes? Because if they're not, they're definitely not as forward thinking as they need to be, especially with the regulations that we are expecting to see come down from the FDA.
Now, I'll tell you one thing that comes to mind right now on this is because of COVID and because of how COVID kind of accelerated the adoption of remote patient monitoring, a lot of these technologies and platforms that had been around for a while were suddenly more widely adopted. And that's going to help a lot because the fact that the platforms exist now and are used more to be able to implement these new innovations is going to help out a lot. I mean, when Valencell started in 2006, these platforms just did not exist at the scale that they do today. And so if we had a solution that could be very useful and maybe improve outcomes and reduce costs, what platform would we stick it into? So I do think that benefit will help. I guess maybe it's a little more optimism and intuitive than anything else. I do think the fact that these platforms are being more widely adopted and respected and trusted is going to help accelerate some of these use cases really being implemented and having the real outcome of improving outcomes at reduced cost.
Yeah, I'll just weigh in quickly. And I think to the point of your question, Kristen, it is all about kind of building up that clinical evidence, the research. And as a result, we've had to just set up an entire clinical research team, and we have a whole page on our website with the studies. But we've also found that if we can get our partners focused on doing the research themselves, that's even better, because then it's more independent. They get excited, they buy in. So as an example, when we first launched, there was a lot of questions in the industry with platforms like ours: are they as accurate as a nurse triage line, and is it just going to appeal to the younger demographic? So to that point, Stanford University and Sutter Health worked together almost in a year in analyzing every single assessment that we did for them, and produced a study that showed that it was akin and equivalent to the same advice that a nurse would give, and it's the same demographics across their system. We've been working with a number of doctors, for instance, to prove clinical evidence. And one of the things we did to one of the earlier points is one of our competitors is out there for the last few years claiming that they're going to replace doctors, which is obviously received very offensively. We put out a study that measured doctors' accuracy. We showed that it was obviously better than ours, but we also showed that when we put our assessment in their hands, we doubled their accuracy. So it's trying to do things like that to prove the evidence, prove how it's going to help them, and really move it forward. And I think the last piece, as Karen alluded to, was just measuring the value. In cases like ours, and I'll use Sutter once again as an example, we do about 4,000 assessments a month, consistently every month across their 3.3 million patients. About 48% of them are off hours, and 42% are directing them away from same-day urgent care. So if you do the math, that's over 1,000 people a month that we're redirecting away from unnecessary expensive services like emergency rooms or urgent cares. You take the average numbers from CMS of $1,700 or $1,800 per visit, and that in itself is $1.5 to $2 million of value that we could be potentially driving each month. But the challenge is now, how do you measure that? How do you prove that? And how do you work with your clients so that they can understand that and value it even more?
It sounds like it's also absolutely a matter of what kind of business models they have implemented.
I was going to add,
it's funny you say that, because being fee for service, in the first couple of weeks when we saw the number of people we were redirecting away from the ER, we called Sutter's executives to let them know, because we were worried that there might be someone with revenue responsibility that was kind of questioning what was happening. And to their point, we're all moving to population health and value-based care, and this is the way we've got to go in order to treat people better and more economically.
Right. The service lines can't be thinking about the revenue that they're generating as part of the health system. It has to be about improvement of the patient's treatment plan as a whole, about, okay, maybe you're going to identify cancer more quickly through follow-up care and standardized follow-ups when that patient's coming through the ER through an incidental finding. How do you use AI to present the right surgical, maybe there's potential surgery for a rare disease like CTEPH, or those types of things, that it's the entire patient care pathway that has to be looked at across the life of the patient and where they are in the health system, not the parts of what the ER is doing versus imaging is doing versus, intensive care, like all those different service lines that you have to have them come together about what's going to be best for the patient at that time.
Yeah, I was going to add that aside from improving overall outcome, one thing we probably should focus on, and hopefully that goes there, is bring the patient back in the focus, right? Part of this conversation is, how is patient benefiting from it? And then how can we advance the care from the patient's lens? Uh-huh. And part of what we have frequently found in our feedback and surveys is that, and in COVID, to a large extent, helped us understand that four walls of a hospital or clinician's office isn't the best location every single time for patient to receive the care. So can we create an environment that is safe, effective, to let the patient receive the care where it is optimal? And in many cases, it's at their home. So having the technology be an assistive, certainly not replace, but assist the clinician so that patient can receive the care in the comfort of their home, potentially safer, in many cases recovering much faster. It does
and more cost effectively too.
I was going to say it results in cost effective too, precisely. So you start with patient, help them receive the care, and you will end up getting cost-effective solutions as well.
Very much so.
It sounds like there is a lot of potential over the coming years, a lot of momentum to back that potential up, but we still have a long ways to go before we manage to actualize it.
Connected consumers, if you'd like more information on Parks Associates executive conferences, please visit www.parksassociates.com. Don't forget to tune into our next episode, where we will chat about expanding access to inclusive tech with guest speaker Brooke McCall. She's the Senior Director of the Tech Access Initiative at the United Spinal Association.
Please check out our Smart Tech Check podcast with industry veteran and host Mark Bina. Smart Tech Check is a weekly podcast focused on the smart home, home automation, security, and so much more.
And as always, we want your feedback. Please feel free to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tweet at Parks Associates to let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear next.
the Connected Consumer Podcast.